All right, welcome to another episode of the Middle Aged Metalhead. This one's a long pending upload. Analog Archives is celebrating its 2000 subscriber count. I think he's way past that now. Terrific channel, tons and tons of OG uh, tapes and vinyl from a guy who was there when it all happened. So that channel has a lot of fun stuff on it, particularly if you're into the old school. And he came up with this thread of 10 sophomore albums that are better than the debuts, or at least as good, right? So here's my entry into that, what would you call it, contest. And yeah, so let's start off straight away. First up, I'm going to start with a few classics, which, in my head at least, these are obvious choices, but you know how these things are. So if you disagree, feel free to drop a comment and you can flame me all you want. But yeah, Paranoid absolutely blows the debut out of the water for me. The first Black Sabbath album, still a very much heavy blues album from that particular time period of the late 60s, early 70s, 1970 when that came out. I wouldn't call it particularly path breaking apart from the title song. But with Paranoid, the band were really on to something special, right? I mean, you had, of course, Warpigs, Paranoid, you had Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots. You also had Planet Caravan, the mandatory ballad, and absolutely destroys the debut, in my opinion. Next up, another Stone Cold classic. This is Iron Maiden Killers. Again, absolutely love this album. Love the debut too, but I'm not a particularly huge fan of the debut. But Killers, I think the band just, pushed everything up a notch. Terrific songs, terrific performances musically, and yeah, just absolutely nailed it. Rothschild and the title song will always be my favorites. But yeah, there isn't a bad song on here. So, second, Iron Maiden Killers. Next, moving on to some thrash. Metallica, Ride the Lightning. I absolutely love Kill 'Em All, but Ride the Lightning is just, it's on another planet when you compare the two albums. It's a great debut. I'm sure it's a hugely influential debut, but Ride the Lightning just absolutely blows it away, right? One of the greatest thrash metal albums of all time. And what else can you say? Next up, a band that, or at least an album that I have a lot of love for. The first album was okay, but Atrophy, Violent by Nature, absolutely love it. Think this is so much better than what was the debut called? Socialized Hate. I think the one with the clown on the cover. But yeah, this album and that title song, Violent by Nature, I mean, damn, it just makes you want to move your head, right? Absolutely. Bang your head, move around. There's so much energy on this album that it is infectious. So, yeah, again, way better than the debut. Next up, some more thrash metal from Canada. The second album by DBC or Dead Brain Cells. This one's called Universe. The band had a debut album think a year before this or a couple of years before this. It was self-titled. It was called Dead Brain Cells, and it was pretty much an homage to Slayer, I'd say. But with Universe, again, it felt like a whole new band. I mean, it was technical, progressive, Voivodian. I don't know what they were smoking in between writing the first and second album, or if there were any major lineup changes, but Universe absolutely rules. Slightly more obscure, maybe from the thrash genre, but yeah, if you've never heard DVC before, l- pick up either one of the albums. You can't go wrong with them. But Universe absolutely rules. Next, one of my all-time favorite bands and one of my all-time favorite vocalists, Nevermore, The Politics of Ecstasy. The band's self-titled debut was good, but it was still very much a band searching for its sound. And with Politics of Ecstasy, they just found it. I mean, Sacrament, The Seven Tongues of God, Passenger, The Learning. This is just Tiananmen Man. I mean, this is one hell of an album. And they got heavier. They at the same time they got more melodic. They got a lot more dense, if you will. And Warrell Dane was just incredible. I mean, yeah, just one of those vocalists that I will always, always miss. Rest in peace. But Nevermore, Politics of Ecstasy absolutely destroys the debut. Next, one of my all-time favorite death metal albums, uh, Emulation, Here and After. So the debut from Emulation was still quite good. I mean, you wouldn't call that a bad album. In fact, you'd call it a very, very good album. But for some reason, I cannot remember what it's called right now, which is why I guess I should be making notes when I make these videos. But yeah, I mean, Dawn of Possession. Yeah, there you go. But Here and After, man, what an album. This pretty much defines Emulation sound for me. Just an absolutely killer death metal album from front to back. And pretty much, again, way better than the debut. Next up, we will go to Sweden and Desultory. This is the band's second album, a very glossy cover, so I'm not sure if you can see that, but yeah, the band's second album, Bitterness. This came as the follow up to their debut, Into Eternity, which was still very, second wave Swedish death metal, so it had a lot of early Dismember and Entombed in its sound. But with Bitterness, they amped up the melody and you had a whole lot of hooks. There was this very melancholic atmosphere to the death metal as well, and overall, just a damn good album. Into Eternity is still very fine, but Bitterness is just a little bit better. Next, back to the US, and I don't know, maybe this is a divisive pick, but for me, one of the greatest death metal albums of all time, Autopsy's Mental Funeral. And while Severed Survival is a great debut, I think this one just kind of beats it. I mean, you've got Twisted Mass of Burnt Decay, which is just one of the all-time great death metal album openers, and from there it never really lets up. Absolutely superb stuff. And finally, my last pick. This was probably the toughest because I have a lot of love for Whisper Supremacy, and I think that's absolutely a stunning, brutal death metal album. But None So Vile is maybe just a little bit better. That's, yeah. Cryptopsy, None So Vile. If you've never heard Cryptopsy, I mean, fuck, you must be living under a rock. But yeah, this is fantastic stuff. And a couple of cheats at the back, as you can see, which I will not name, so I can stick with the 10 titles. But yeah, there you go. That's it from me. Cheers to Analog Archives for creating this thread. Have a good one, guys. Subscribe if you haven't. Drop a line in the comments. Tell me what you think about my picks. Tell me what your picks are for sophomore albums that are better or at least as good as the debuts. And in the meantime, stay metal, stay safe. Cheers.